The survivor is left with fundamental problems in basic trust, autonomy, and initiative. She approaches the task of early adulthood, burdened by major impairments in self care, in cognition and memory, in identity, and in the capacity to form stable relationships. Judith Lewis Herman, Trauma and Recovery. My topic is child abuse. Child abuse is an epidemic throughout the world and is considered as one of the most heinous forms of abuse. Not only is it emotional, sexual, or physical, it causes mental and physical distress, harm, and disturbance to children and affects their health. Every year, more than 3.6 million referrals are made to child protection agencies involving more than 6.6 million children. This referral can include multiple children. According to childhealth.org, the United States has one of the worst records among the industrialized nations, losing on average between 4 and 7 children every day to child abuse and neglect. In my country, Jamaica, child abuse reported cases presented by Office of the Children's Registry indicates that close to 70,000 cases of child abuse were reported over 8 years from 2007, and that preliminary figure shows a troubling increase in the number of cases reported in 2015. Child abuse is more than just physical, with bruises and broken bones. It is verbal, psychological, emotional, sexual, and neglect. Child abuse kills more children than accidental fall, choking on food, suffocation, or fires in the home. It occurs in all classes of society and is a virus that needs to be eradicated. Physical abuse is deliberate, aggressive actions on a child that inflicts pain, wounds, unexplained bruises, burns, and sore muscles. Now, we know a child is being physically abused when he or she shies away from touch, has welt marks, flinches at sudden movements, is afraid to go home, and wears inappropriate clothing to cover up marks. Whereas a child who has lived the nightmare of verbal abuse will always feel misunderstood or unimportant. Often, this act involves put downs and name calling intended to make the victim feel they are not worthy of love or respect and that they do not have ability or talent. If the victims speak up against these statements, they are often told that the criticisms were just a joke and that it is their problem that they do not find the joke funny. Most verbally abusive statements are camouflaged by the choice of words, the tone of voice, the body language, and the abuser insisting it's for your own good, and other such verbal decoys. Which leads me to my next point, psychological abuse. Psychological abuse takes shape in the form of one person controlling the information available to another person, so as to manipulate that person's sense of reality, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. This type of abuse is strong emotional manipulative content designed to force the victim to comply with the abuser's wishes. For example, psychological abuse might occur when a pedophile tells a child victim that she causes him to abuse her because she tempted him. Now, how can a child tempt an adult? The impact of child abuse and neglect is often discussed in terms of physical, psychological, behavioral, and social consequences. In reality, however, it is impossible to separate them completely. Did you know that when parents are continually unavailable for their children, it constitutes abuse? Yes, it does. Neglect or the absence of parental care can have damaging effects on a child's well being. It is also the most common form of child abuse. My next point, emotional abuse. This results in depression and anxiety. For example, it may make a person more likely to smoke, abuse alcohol, or illicit drugs, or overeat, wherein psychological problems often manifest at high risk behaviors. My next topic, sexual abuse. According to study.com, this includes any type of behavior toward a child that is intended for an offender's sexual stimulation, such as fondling, forced sexual acts, or indecent physical exposure. This can be one isolated event as well as incidences that go on for years. which eventually results in risky behaviors by the victim, in turn can lead to long-term physical health problems such as sexually transmitted diseases, cancer, and obesity. In most cases, statistics alone cannot convey the horror of physical assaults upon children in our society. A child who is physically abused will have a scar for life, will have a scar on the life of the child. Physical scars will be visible, but emotional scars may have the most damaging effect. Most of the children that have been abused will have trust issues and will find it difficult to build relationships. This is especially if the people who abuse them are persons who they trust or relied on for security and support. Such children will also develop the feeling of being worthless. This may affect them even in their adult life. They will be reluctant to reach for what is best for them because they feel that they are not good enough for it. Not only are abused children at later risk of mental illness, but because of the way trauma affects the stress system, they are also more vulnerable to developing chronic diseases like diabetes, high blood pressure, heart attack, and stroke. Clearly, there is a need for collaboration among psychosocial clinicians, psychosocial service agencies, and the criminal justice systems. We need to stop our young ones from being exposed to and to endure physical abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, and neglect. If you have reason to believe a child has been or may be harmed, call your local Department of Children and Family Services or your local police department. Preventing child abuse is not simply a matter of parents doing a better job. Rather, it is for individuals to accept personal responsibility in reducing acts of child abuse and neglect, provide support to each other, protect our children within our families and our communities. Child abuse is not a social issue, it is also a healthcare issue. We need to make the world around us a safe place for our children. Let us strongly oppose, protest, and fight against child abuse and the abusers, and fewer children will remain at risk. Break the silence and save a life.